Welcome! Today we're going to talk about this awesome 2011 Infiniti G37 Sport sedan. Then we'll take it around the block for a quick little spin. I've been with Infiniti retailers for about 20 years, and most of the videos I do are newer Infinitis, but every once in a while we get an older one like this and I get to go down memory lane and really kind of reminisce and talk about some great vehicles of Infiniti's past. Infiniti makes some great vehicles today, like the Q50 Red Sport 400 or 400 horsepower twin turbo V6. But these old G37s, these have been proven to be very reliable and robust. Used cars for a lot of people. A lot of youngsters looking for fast, affordable cars that are reliable are very drawn to the G series, be it the coupe or the sedan. And the G37 is one of the greats. You have this amazing 3.7 liter V6, considered to be one of the best V6s ever offered in the United States. You have maintenance-free timing chains, so you never need to worry about the cost replacement of timing belts. Those timing chains are zero maintenance, and are designed to last the service life of the engine, which could be 200 or 300,000 miles. I've seen plenty of examples of these Infiniti engines running strong with 200 and 300,000 miles on it. I've owned a few Infinitis myself. I had an older G35, an 05 G35, and currently I own a FX37, which is very mechanically similar to this, where my FX37 is a sport crossover. This is a sport sedan. And this is a true sport sedan. This actually has hardware on it that you can't get today on a brand new Infiniti, no matter what package you get. Which I'll talk to you a little bit about more. And this has a sport package. Back in the day, not all sports packages are the same. The sport package you get in the all-wheel drive is different than the sport package you get in the rear-wheel drive like this one. The rear-wheel drive actually has more hardware and more go-fast bits you get with the sport package versus the all-wheel drive, and I'll tell you the differences. So this is a nice little trade-in we've gotten. It only has 95,049 miles. A lot of these have well over 100,000 miles, but with 95,000 miles, this could still have a lot of life in it. As I mentioned before, I've seen variations of these engines and similar vehicles of this with 200 and 300,000 miles. So this potentially could go another 100 or even another 200,000 miles with a caring owner. Don't take my word for it. Do some research. Look at the accolades. Look at a lot of comments on some of my past G37 videos about all the happy owners that have talked about how many miles I got out of them and how reliable they are. I've had a lot of favorable feedback. Okay, so let's talk about the sport package. So this has the rear-wheel drive sport package. So you get a little bit extra stuff with the sport package on the outside and the inside. So what do you get on the inside? You get these nice steering wheel paddle shifters. This has a 7-speed automatic transmission, so you can take control of those 7 forward gears, pretty much the same transmission you can find today on the Q50 or the Q60. Also, the sport package, you have a little extra bolstering in the seats to hold you in place during performance driving. This has a nice aluminum trim as well. We have power and heated front seats. Generally, the sport models of the G37 have a lot more standard equipment. This has a navigation system, has a rear parking camera, Bose sound system. Love that analog clock. They've kind of done away with that feature. That was a really cool, elegant touch that they used to put in Infinitis in the olden days. You have a power adjustable steering wheel that tilts and telescopes. And this is another cool feature that you don't find today on newer Infiniti products. Look at the whole gauge cluster moves up and down with the steering wheel. The reason why they do that is that the steering wheel will never obstruct the gauges. I'm kind of taller, so there's a lot of times where I have the steering wheel adjusted and the steering wheel's right kind of in my line of vision with the gauge cluster. But with the whole gauge cluster moving up and down in the steering wheel, it's going to be a lot more unlikely for that to happen. I think it was just too expensive. The cost of having a adjustable gauge cluster, just how much it costs versus the sales advantage they got versus the competition. That's a case where sometimes the bean counters will win win in that situation, and a feature like that will get done away with. I don't know the true cause of why they did away with it, but I think they probably thought it added too much complexity and too much cost to the production process versus how many extra cars they end up selling in the end. But it was a great feature, and I wish they still had it today on newer Infiniti products. We have an automatic dimming mirror, universal garage door opener, memory seats. Also, the sport package, you get these nice aluminum pedals, great sounding Bose audio system. Okay, also the sport package, you get an upgraded wheel and tire package. You get a sport tuned suspension. Okay, so now we're getting into things that you don't get with the all-wheel drive sport package. So in the all-wheel drive, when it says sport, it's what we call a sport appearance package, where you get nicer wheels, a little bit extra aggressive front fascia. But having a sport tuned suspension, you don't get that with the all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive has also a higher ride height, so for a higher center of gravity, which is good in driving in inclement weather with all-wheel drive, is beneficial. But from a sports car driving perspective, having a lower ride height, a lower center of gravity like on this one, not an inch higher like the all-wheel drive, is preferable. And you also get the sport brakes. The all-wheel drive with the sport package just has the regular brakes. It doesn't have the upgraded brakes as well. And then let's talk about a limited slip differential. This has a viscous limited slip differential, which you only get with the rear-wheel drive sport package. The all-wheel drive doesn't have that. Today on the Q50 Red Sport, they don't even have a limited slip differential anymore. They actually use their brakes. They have a braking system where they can brake individual wheels, which kind of acts like a limited slip differential to a degree, but there are pros and cons with that system. This has the old school viscous limited slip differential, which is really nice sports car hardware for performance driving. Then the front end styling with the sport package, as well as the all-wheel drive and the rear-wheel drive sport package, you get a more aggressive looking front fascia, a really nice looking vehicle. Beautiful lines in the G37. It's aged very well. I think it's a beautiful, elegant design. I really like the way this car looks a lot. And the engine, we were talking about how reliable this engine is, but it's also very powerful. You get close to 330 horsepower. It's basically the same engine that you have in the Nissan Z. In fact, you could consider this like a four-door luxury version of the Nissan Z. Very mechanically similar to the Nissan Z. It's built on the same advanced frame engine platform. The reason why they call it that is they take the engine and they place it as far back behind the front axle as possible, so the center of gravity is towards the middle of the vehicle. It's actually almost like a mid-engine car of how back they push the engine, and that just improves weight distribution, helping it rotate on its axis, improving the handling and feel through the corners. In fact, if you read some older reviews of the G35s and G37s, a lot of car magazines actually equate the handling to almost Porsche-like. You know, you could even argue that these older G37s actually handle better than the new Q50, Q60 Red Sports, which are a little bit more nose heavy and not quite as well balanced as these older G35s and G37s. It's a compact sedan, but you have a decent amount of space on the inside and the front seats and back space. Dual X-Thing exhaust. You have the S badge right here. All right, let's take it for a spin around the block and see how this thing drives. All right, we're taking this 2011 G37 Sport sedan, rear-wheel drive, out for a spin. A little bunny rabbit. 'Tis the season. We got a lot of little bunnies here, a little wildlife in Fife. Okay. Beautiful day for a drive in a beautiful classic Infiniti product. I love the sound of that VQ37 engine. Has a nice raspy engine note to it. Lots of low end torque. And you get the best of both worlds. Usually with engines, you know, you make a compromise. You know, usually a really reliable engine might not be the most powerful engine in the world. Or when you have a really powerful engine, it might not be the most reliable engine in the world. But with the VQ37 and the VQ35, which evolved into the VQ37, they are both very powerful and very reliable. You have a manual shift mode on this thing too. You can use the shifter here. You can put it in sport mode and push up to upshift and back to downshift. You get rev match downshifts for a sportier sound and feel. But the nice thing with the sport package is you can also use the paddle shifter, so you can just start, you know, using the paddle shifter and downshift. And it's what we call idiot proof. It won't over rev the engine. So if you try downshifting into a too low of a gear, which would put the revs into the red line, it just won't let you do that. But the one nice thing about it is it will let you bounce it off the rev limiter. With a lot of quote-unquote manual transmission settings, if you get red line, it'll automatically change gears on you, which, you know, hey, if you're giving me manual control of the car, I want to dictate when it shifts gear, not the car. So I like how Infiniti will let you bounce it off the rev limiter, have fun with it. It won't upshift on you like some other gearboxes. And you can also put the shifter into sport mode, which will just program the shifting algorithm for a little bit more of a sporty way of shifting. It'll hold the engine revs out a little bit longer before it changes gears, and maybe it will let the engine stay at a higher RPM before it shifts up into a higher gear for better performance driving. The paddle shifters are fun, but the engine's computer does a pretty good job, just figuring out which gear you want it in. So for the most part, when I'm just performance driving, I just let the car figure it out. If you do like to fidget with stuff and shift gears on your own for fun, I mean, it's a nice option, but I don't really think using the manual mode versus the car deciding when to shift makes it any faster. So I have a little straightaway up here. I'll floor it, see how it goes in a straight line. I won't go too crazy. We're on public roads. Traction control kicked in right there. And no problem at all getting up to 60 miles an hour. This thing is pretty quick. I think when these were factory new, the 0 to 60 was right around the 5.5 second range. Obviously, this probably lost a few horsepowers here or there with 95,000 miles, but still running very strong. And with 7 speeds, you get pretty good roll-on acceleration performance. So I'll slow down a little bit and just floor it. Kicks into a lower gear and takes right off. Very, very fun car to drive. You have nice, precise handling. Even though this is an older car, with 95,000 miles on it, the steering feel is very, very tight. I guess, one of the things that you do have to look at on these cars, one common thing that I find that has issues is the steering racks. They can start leaking. It's not the end of the world. You just have to make sure that, you keep your fluids topped off in your steering rack. Or, you can get a new steering rack. They have aftermarket racks. You can put a factory steering rack in. A new steering rack would probably be between, $1,500, $3,000, depending on, if you go through an Infiniti dealership, you go aftermarket, that type of thing. It's not the end of the world to replace a leaking steering rack. Obviously, there's a lot of other components of the vehicle that would be a lot more worrisome to have issues versus a steering rack. I mean, that's really the only bad thing I can say. Then they also have these, it has a fluid mounted subframe, a subframe that can start leaking. They put like a fluid in the subframe to cut down on noise, vibration, and harshness. The bolts can start leaking that fluid. I don't really think it's a safety item. I really don't notice a difference with or without the fluid. But to replace those subframes, that can be expensive. It could be $4,000 or $5,000, but that's probably something I would just say, hey, if it leaks a little bit of subframe fluid, it's not going to compromise the safety or the integrity of the frame of the vehicle. You might just have a little bit more noise and vibration when you're driving. So that's something I wouldn't even bother with, but that is another area that I see have issues. But aside from that, these are rock solid vehicles, very reliable. I've seen plenty of examples of 200,000-300,000 miles on them. Obviously, if you buy one, not this one, you want to look for one that's fairly well serviced and well taken care of, not abused. Obviously they can handle some abuse. You don't really want to buy a car that was abused. These cars are very robust and very, very strong. That's why they're popular with the youngsters, the younger crowd. But if you happen to get this one is, if it's still for sale, when you're watching this video, it's offered for sale by an Infiniti store. So we have techs that work on these vehicles on a daily basis and are very familiar with them. Well, a beautiful little drive in this G37. It's a great, affordable, high performance sport luxury sedan with very, very reliable construction, built and assembled in Japan. It's an amazing vehicle. In fact, in Japan, they sell these as Skylines. We all think of the Skyline GTR, which is kind of like the halo car, the top of the Skyline pyramid, but there's a whole series, there's a whole line of cars with Skyline badges. And in Japan, a lot of the Infiniti products, like the EX35, are now called the QX50, the G35, the G37. They're all sold as Nissan Skylines. So this is what this was sold in Japan, as a Skyline. They just pretty much just put an Infiniti badge on it in the United States. Well, thanks so much for joining me in this little drive. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon, and have a wonderful day.